a minute ago, Alabama men's basketball, which right now is the #1 overall seed in all of basketball, and a team that is favored to be a part of the Final Four based on projections. This is from alabamasports.com or alabama.com. Darius Miles, a former Alabama player who has been at least charged with murder in a shooting with a young lady and a friend, texted Brandon Miller, who's a star player at Alabama, to bring a gun and to kill, that eventually killed Jameer Jonah Harris. Now, that's the story. It's very complicated, but this just came out in the last 30 minutes or so. Now, this is also a couple of the other notes about this story. From Austin Hannon. Nate Oats, when asked about the situation with Brandon Miller, who is possibly an All-American player, about his involvement in the Darius Miles situation. Quote, "We've known the situation. We've been fully cooperating with law enforcement. We closed practice in prayer today. You can't control everything someone does, and then wrong spot at the wrong time." Now, don't go to the third one, Garrett. Let's discuss this a little bit. That seems to be a very generic comment from the head coach at Alabama.
Okay, Brandon Miller is a potential lottery pick in this draft coming up in the NBA. He is one of the best players, if not the best player on Alabama's team. So when it comes to, allegations of special treatment in this case here, like, there's no doubt about it. The fact that he hasn't been suspended for being involved in this at all, and when your friend calls you, here's what why I don't understand what Nate Oats and Alabama aren't getting in this. When Darius Miles called Brandon Miller to bring him his gun, what did Brandon Miller think that Darius Miles was going to do with it? And, I mean, if any of you right now texted me tonight and said, "Paul, I need you to bring me a gun right now," my first question would be like, why? I mean, why do you want a gun? And then it's used in a murder, and local police say they can't charge him with anything because all he did was hand the gun. But to me, that sounds like accessory to murder. I don't know. I'm not an attorney, so I'm not sure. But that is, wrong place, wrong time. No S.
No.
Nate Oats, but still, wrong decision all the way around.
When I was reading that quote, Craig, I saw you kind of shaking your head. There's another story that we didn't even have on our radar 30 minutes ago. But obviously right now, this is going to be interesting on what happens with Miller moving forward, and also the Alabama men's basketball team, which has been ranked #1 most of the year, Houston, this week.
Yeah, I don't follow Nate Oats very closely. I just know he's a terrific basketball coach, and obviously they're having a great year. But what a moronic statement. I mean, what a stupid statement from a grown man to make, a leader of young men to make. I mean, how embarrassing. And if you're an Alabama fan who's like, what do you mean? I mean, read the statement again. How would you not be embarrassed if you have a brain that actually functions, that your head basketball coach just basically dismissed a guy bringing a gun to an eventual murder, whether he willingly knew or not that it was going to be used in a murder? I'm sorry. Maybe I just grew up differently. I don't have friends calling me asking me to bring them guns. I mean, I understand everybody comes from different backgrounds and whatnot, but, I mean, are we really sitting here trying to act like somebody being called to bring a gun to a situation and that situation turns into murder is just bad, wrong place, wrong time? How did he end up in that place? And at that time, he got a call. What was that call about? For him to bring a gun? And nobody's acting like that. I mean, not that nobody, but Nate Oats is really acting and just brushing that off like it's another day at the office for college kids. I mean, spare me, dude. What a BS response from Nate Oats. And a response that, I'm sure he hopes is just going to brush this thing right along and everybody will just move on. Oh, he's not going to be in trouble. Okay, we can just keep watching him dunk basketballs then and follow his journey to the NBA, and this is just a speed bump. I mean, give me a freaking break, dude. I don't know that he deserves to be charged based on the letter of the law in Alabama. I saw some back and forth on that. So I don't know that there's just this rock-solid accessory to murder charge, and clearly there's no charge against him at all, which is hard to imagine that you bring the murder weapon to an eventual murder. Whether you knowingly knew that or not, you're still bringing a gun and giving it to someone who it does not belong to. That's a no-no. You don't go passing guns around. They're serial numbers for a reason. There's the laws that we do have, whether they're good enough or not, depends on who you ask on any given day. But without delving into that, I mean, there are pretty general rules that we know about, and you don't just go willy-nilly just giving guns off to people. You just don't do that because of reasons like this. And I can sort of, kind of, like, see from a background standpoint, like, I mean, and I don't know enough about the guys involved. Like, did you grow up in a rough neighborhood where this was commonplace and you truly have no idea how stupid this is and you really don't know any better? I'd like to give basically everybody the benefit of the doubt and believe that they're all smart enough to know better. So either he wasn't smart enough to know, and that's problematic enough as it is, that's just like that people operate handing off guns and don't realize how bad that is. Or he knowingly was giving a gun knowing that it could be used in a situation like this. Either way, it looks bad, but Nate Oats' comments make it look way worse. I mean, leader of young men, and look, I'm sure he's great in a lot of other areas, and yes, he's a great coach, obviously, but that's a lame excuse for a comment right there. I mean, come on. Be better. Like, I hate to say that term because it's just so generic, but I mean, geez Louise, Nate Oats, are you kidding me? I mean, he didn't, like, that's so silly.
And this isn't Clue, right? So it's not like you called him to bring you a candlestick and then, oh, yeah, sure, you need a candlestick? I'll bring you the candlestick, and then you killed somebody with a candlestick. Now, I get that, like, me might be a dividing line with, like, a knife. Like, if you called up and said, hey, can you bring me a really sharp kitchen knife, I'd be like, oh, it must be, filleting a steak or something tonight. Yeah, he needs my good kitchen knife. So I bring that to him. There I have a reasonable expectation that that knife is going to be used for something that is not murder or killing or hurting someone. But a gun has one purpose. It's not like I go and tenderize meat by firing bullets into it. Like, that's not what you do. So,
but people own guns.
Yeah, but like if you call, like,
I'm just,
again,
I understand.
people own guns.
Yeah.
But if you were asking, like, anything else in the world, you almost asked me to borrow. Like, if you wanted to borrow my car and you wound up hitting somebody with it, if I'm not with you, I'm like, well, like that wasn't my only fault. Is not making sure you're a better driver, but I'm not an accessory to that because it was just I gave you the car because you said, yeah, can I you borrow your car for an hour? Okay, that's fine. But when you ask, a gun is made for one thing. And I get that there is a kind of a ridiculous debate on what they're for, but a gun is used for one thing. It's built for one thing. And so when you give it to someone, you assume that they're going to, at best, shoot at a target and nothing else. But that is even still, because of what it's designed for, a really crappy excuse for why, I didn't know anything with it.
John Talty, who covers Alabama, we've had him on this show at times in the past, regardless of whether Brandon Miller legally did anything wrong, whether he's an accessory or whatever it might be, bringing a gun that resulted in the death of a human being isn't wrong spot at wrong time. I'm flabbergasted Nate Oats actually used those words to describe the situation. And by the way, when people are dead in that same story, wrong place at wrong time. I'm also a little bit confused on the quote, and I can probably try to get updated on this, when he mentioned that they closed practice today in prayer, but in that same quote prior to that they've been involved in working with authorities. So why was today's practice closed in prayer?
Throw a little Jesus on it. It's all these college coaches do most of the time. I mean, truly, it's really gross. I mean, it is. If anything goes wrong, just, where's Jesus? Let's go get Jesus in the mix, and everything's fine because you can't yell at me. I'm a Christian man. It's freaking despicable, dude. It really is. And, look, I'm not judging Nate Oats all on this, but I do hate that move that seemingly every college coach who needs to answer for something now makes. Like, where's Jesus? Let's go get the Jesus card out because we're being under a microscope now over something that we did. I mean, not to question the man's faith. I'm sure he's a man full of faith, has a great relationship with God. That's not the time to invoke it, man. I mean, come on, dude. I mean, what are we even doing here? And look, I'm sure there's Alabama fan or a person who is, a fan or whatever that says, well, I mean, it was his gun he was asking for. That makes it slightly better, but that still doesn't answer the question of you texting your teammate and him being dumb enough to go grab you your gun and bring it to you without going like, what do you think it's for? Like, could I possibly get in trouble by bringing a gun to a situation where clearly something's going awry? He's not at the gun range. He's not out in the woods hunting. Why would he need a gun in this situation? And nobody questioned that was involved here. I just, this isn't like, hey, could you bring me my wallet? It said, bring me my gun. And then, on top of that, if you want to say it was as simple as like a guy forgot his credit card or something, all you have to do is look at the text messages. And when Miller got to the scene, Miles told his now former teammate, so Darius Miles' teammate, and there was 20-year-old Michaels Davis. But when Miller got to the scene, Miles told Davis the heat is in the hat to let him know that a gun was there. And then Miles added, there's one in the head, a.k.a. there's one in the chamber. And then got the girlfriend out of the way, and eventually a murder commences. And so, yeah, like, I understand there's young kids and dumb things happen and all that. And, people will be charged the way that they need to be charged according to the letter of the law. I'm not sitting here banging my fist asking for like first-degree murder charges on everybody involved. I don't know enough about the situation, but I do know that was a really dumb response by Nate Oats. Like, that was a stupid response.
It's one of the top-rated teams. Go ahead and finish.
That's just you have to know better in that position as a head coach. And I understand things happen with college kids and that, but like he dismisses this like it was like a DUI or something. And look, that's serious as well. Not to make light of that at all, but somebody was killed by the gun that your player brought due to an altercation involving another player who's now charged with murder and in jail. And you're saying, let's throw a little prayer on it.
Miles asked Miller to bring the gun. Miller brought the gun, and then Miles, according to what I'm reading, then told Davis where the gun was, as you mentioned.
Who's the third wheel in this that committed the murder.
It'll be interesting to see how this unwinds. Listen, it's a bad situation all the way around. You can sit there and look at the quotes with Nate Oats, or you can look at how long have they known this? Should Miller have been playing? I am not making that decision because I don't know all the timeline. I do know this happened, back in January 15th in Tuscaloosa, the killing of Jonah Harris, who was 23 years old. All right, so there's that.